Hello everyone, welcome to the Lightning Ball channel. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please do so and activate the notification bell. Your support fuels my continued efforts. In our previous episode, we discussed how, under Rimura's command, Primordial Purple Ultima confronted the Empire's Flying Combat Corps, using nuclear flame to incinerate the entire corps. On another front, heeding Rimura's directive, Gabta and Ranga combined their strength, transforming into a humanoid giant wolf and unleashing a destructive tornado upon the enemy ranks, initiating a massacre. In this episode, we will delve into the battle involving Primordial White, Testarossa, and the Empire's version of the event known as the Dyed Scarlet-Dyed Lakeshore. Let's get started. As the Monster Federation's executives unleashed their full might, numerous Magitanks were destroyed, and the Flying Combat Corps were completely annihilated. At this juncture, the battle outcome had essentially been decided, boosting the morale of the Monster Federation and commencing their final mopping-up operations. This spelled doom for the Empire's forces. The enemy commander, the Lieutenant General Gaster, hastily decided to retreat, but it was too late to make such a move. In the midst of Gaster's panic, a cool voice resonated across the battlefield, that of Primordial White, Testarossa, with her pure white hair, ruby eyes, and a face brimming with smiles, exuding a peerless beauty. Testarossa stated that Gaster's attempt to retreat was now impossible. She had already warned that there would be no mercy once an invasion commenced. Gaster seemed to recall something upon witnessing Testarossa's beauty. Subsequently, Testarossa, like a mother tired of a troublesome child, revealed a nurturing expression, chiding Gaster for his rudeness and seemingly forgetting her. However, Gaster had certainly not forgotten her. Beyond her captivating beauty, the eerie aura she emitted was enough to instill an unforgettable fear in Gaster. In a desperate move, he urgently commanded his troops to attack, but moments later there was no response. Gaster's unique skill, musician, enabled him to hear sounds imperceptible to others, such as heartbeats or the flow of blood. Yet now, he couldn't detect his subordinates' heartbeats, they were all dead. Testarossa chuckled at Gaster's panic state, joking that she wasn't sure why, but it seemed his subordinates had all taken a break, probably due to exhaustion, as none could stand anymore. Gaster realized his troops had been slain by the woman before him. Yet, Testarossa maintained a carefree, cheerful demeanor, casually mentioning she had consumed a few souls due to a little hunger. Gaster's rage suppressed his fear. Seizing the momentum, he unleashed his supreme secret technique, Mind Requiem, aka Funeral Dirge of Death, a technique that spread lethal sound waves through the surrounding space, effective against demonic spiritual lifeforms due to its non-physical nature. However, Testarossa appeared to enjoy the melody, as if savoring the beauty of the piece. Realizing his attack was futile, Gaster succumbed to despair, considering the possibility that Testarossa might be even more formidable than the rampaging humanoid magic wolf. Acknowledging his inability to defeat Testarossa, Gaster regretted his decision to ignore the warnings and attack the Monster Federation. Consequently, he begged for mercy. Gaster proposed a deal with Testarossa, highlighting his high rank in the Empire and his extensive knowledge of military strategies and secrets, potentially useful to her. He pleaded for his life to be spared. Despite his shameful act, Gaster's eyes remained resolute. He had just caught a glimmer of hope, the sound of several approaching footsteps, almost silent in their approach, undoubtedly belonging to the Empire's elite intelligence agents. Though their identities were unknown to him, Gaster was confident they could help him escape, if not defeat Testarossa. To buy time for the rescue, Gaster engaged in various tactics. Shortly after, 3 knights descended from above, positioning themselves before Gaster. Immediately recognizing Testarossa as an archdemon, and astonishingly in flesh, the knights didn't wait to explain their identities to Gaster. They requested Gaster's aid in subduing the demon. Gaster readily agreed, and in the next instant, holy chains shot out from all directions, immobilizing Testarossa. This formation, known as the Empire's Banishing Formation, was specially developed to counter archdemons and mastered by only a few in the Empire. The knights were members of the Imperial Guardians, Davis, ranked 11th, Balt, ranked 38th, and Gordon, rank 64th, all of whom had attained the level of Sinjin, or enlightened humans, demi-spiritual lifeforms who had evolved correctly. Davis, in particular, was nearing the strength of a saint. The knights coordinated their movements to lock Testarossa, bringing cheer to Gaster, who planned to assist them in securing victory. However, Testarossa reminisced, suggesting these were the men who had once thwarted her. This revelation startled Davis, who plunged into memories of an event decades past. Back then, an empire noble sought to marry a princess from a vassal state, aiming to control the state for his personal gain, an ambition resisted by the state's king. To counter the empire, the vassal state declared its intent for independence. The king, leading a populace of less than 10,000, stood little chance against the empire and resorted to the forbidden magic of demon summoning. The court magicians responded, summoning an archdemon, none other than Primordial White. The demon's price for assistance was the princess's body, a demand initially refused by the king. However, the head magician, upon seeing the demon, succumbed to madness and agreed. The demon, wearing a sinister smile, possessed the princess's body, leading to a tragic outcome. The small nation was devastated by the demon's rampage, with citizens' blood flowing into the lake, turning its beautiful waters red. The Empire's Imperial Guardians, dispatched urgently, managed to seal Primordial White before she fully incarnated. It's important to note that this is the Empire's version of the story. The truth of this event will be unfolded in future videos. The team that played a pivotal role in this event was Davis's squad. Realizing their opponent was Primordial White, the knights wavered. Testarossa, still in the grip of the Empire's banishing formation, displayed a contemptuous and malevolent demeanor, mocking the knights for their futile efforts to restrain her. Davis, though aware of the lucky victory in their previous encounter with Primordial White, held a firm belief in their invincibility, regardless of how many battles they fought. He declared that, despite Testarossa's unexpected resurrection, his team had once sealed her and would not lose this time either. Testarossa must defeat them to claim victory. In the next moment, the knights' necklaces glowed, transforming them into warriors clad in golden armor. Davis, to avoid collateral damage, ordered Gaster to retreat with the troops. He then pulled the chains taut, aiming to deliver a fatal blow to Testarossa. It was then he realized the chains felt empty. Accompanying his confusion was a chilling voice.
"Did you think I'd allow anyone to escape?"
Davis spun around to see Testarossa clutching Gaster's neck, followed by a snap, and Gaster collapsed lifeless. Davis stood in shock, and Balt and Gordon appeared anxious, unprepared for Gaster's effortless demise. However, their worst ordeal had just begun.
"Sorry to keep you waiting. This man seemed eager to flee, so I gave him a little punishment. By the way, I've been quite upset since earlier. My name is Testarossa, so please stop calling me Primordial White."
Davis and his men couldn't help but scream in shock, astounded that someone would be foolish enough to name a primordial demon. The very embodiment of a primordial demon taking flesh was already a grave matter, but now she even had a name, an unprecedented situation that urgently needed to be reported to Emperor Rudra. In response, Davis commanded Gordon, who was positioned behind him, to start chanting a teleportation spell. However, upon witnessing this scene, Testarossa let out a laugh. As Testarossa chuckled, an enraged Balt shouted and charged with his spear. But his strength was no match for her swift movements. In an instant, Testarossa vanished, reappearing beside Balt. She gently blew in his ear, her breath carrying an intoxicating fragrance. Balt felt a chilling hand grasp his neck. The image of Gaster being killed flashed in his mind, igniting a deep-rooted terror that made him shudder. With a snap, Balt collapsed to the ground with a look of agony. This scene plunged Davis into chaos. He hurriedly jumped into the magic circle, commanding a retreat to the Empire's headquarters. However, the teleportation spell, though ready, failed to activate because an even more powerful magic had been unleashed. Testarossa had learned to use the magical disturbance ray from the Imperial Flying Combat Corps. Davis descended into utter panic. How could Testarossa know such a technique? Even primordial demons shouldn't possess such power. Desperate to mask his fear, Davis and Gordon interrogated Testarossa about her evolution. Soon, they were forced to confront the reality of Testarossa's existence. She was a new demon peer, a second Guy Crimson. Testarossa confirmed their suspicion, stating her evolution into a demon peer followed her naming. She recalled her unfulfilled feast during her last emergence, and resented Davis's team for their interference. Reflecting on the past event, Davis remembered the nearly 10,000 innocent lives lost, while Testarossa regarded it merely as a meal and lamented not eating her fill. Enraged by this revelation, Davis's fury eclipsed his fear. Raising his sword, he struggled to free himself from Testarossa's magical lock.
Testarossa, haven't you finished off the enemy yet? If you dawdle too much, Rimuru-sama will be angry.
Just then, a cute voice from above interrupted Davis, hinting at impatience. Testarossa admitted to getting carried away in conversation. Following the voice, Davis and Gordon saw its owner, a girl with a ponytail hairstyle. It was Ultima. Even to Davis, it was evident that she was on par with Testarossa, signifying that both were demon peers. Davis's recently kindled flame of righteousness was instantly doused by fear. Facing two demon peers, he realized his end was imminent.
So, although it's regrettable, we must part ways. Since you're aware of Guy Crimson, you must also know this.
Testarossa said, conjuring a fist-sized black flame in her hand, which she easily crushed. This spell, nuclear magic spell, Death Streak, also known as Blessing of Death, was used by Guy when he became a demon lord. Testarossa's whispered words transformed the flame into a black light that illuminated the surroundings. This light, capable of penetrating almost all materials and rewriting genetic sequences of living beings to kill them, was effective against anyone who was not a spiritual life form or a soul with memory capabilities. In the radius of 500 meters, under Testarossa's precise control, a vicious storm of death swept through, including Davis and Gordon and many tank soldiers, leaving none alive. The uncontrolled Magitanks soon stopped moving, and the once noisy battlefield fell silent. Ultima cheerfully noted the absence of survivors, praising Testarossa's skill. Testarossa, however, mentioned Ultima's magic was a bit overdone as they were supposed to bring back some of the Magitanks and airships intact for investigation. Ultima sheepishly admitted to the fragility of these toys, having intended to destroy only one but ending up destroying them all. However, she believed the data initially gathered from the soldiers' brainwaves should suffice. Testarossa patiently reminded Ultima that after receiving names from their Rimuru-sama, they had become much stronger, necessitating more caution. Ultima agreed but voiced concerns about Carrera, who lacked restraint and favored flashy magic. Testarossa admired Rimuru-sama's foresight in keeping Carrera home at the Monster Federation's headquarters. Ultima then had a realization about Carrera's likely silence. Testarossa slightly frowned at Benimaru's overly cautious battle plan, aimed at coaxing out a potential threat to Rimuru-sama, while Ultima found it also troublesome, noting they could have secured victory more straightforwardly by taking action themselves. Testarossa surmised that Rimuru-sama's strategy was likely intended to facilitate Gobta and Gabbro's growth, acknowledging that while Rimuru-sama could easily assist in their evolution, battle experience was something they had to gain themselves. Both Ultima and Testarossa agreed on the brilliance of Rimuru-sama's plan. While collecting souls, the two primordial demon beauties engaged in a conversation, starting to praise Rimuru-sama, much like Diablo. With no humans left alive on the battlefield, the Empire's armored division's two main forces, the Magitank Corps and Flying Combat Corps, were utterly defeated, shifting the battlefield to a total annihilation of the Empire's army. Unaware of the defeat, the poor Corps commander Calgurio still had no idea of the battle's outcome. Against this backdrop, the main force of the Empire's Mech Corps, the Mech Transformation Troops, set their sights on the Monster Federation's capital. Alright, that's all for this video. In the next episode, we will discuss the modifications made to the Underground Labyrinth by Rimuru's team in response to the war. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support fuels my continued efforts. See you in the next one.